I've been working for Translate 5 in the marketing department for a while now. I studied international business and I have worked towards a master's degree in English and biology. Something additional about myself, I have 2 cats, which I hope won't interrupt this meeting, this webinar today. They seem quiet right now, but that might change. And in case you don't know, it's a holiday today in Germany. It's a day of Ascension, also known as Father's Day, which is quite ironic because it's my last day as a non-father, but I get to enjoy it. I'm expecting a son in September, which should also be fun. Well, that's enough about myself. I'm also joined by my colleague Ozan Gedik and by the creator and founder of MetaQI, the development team and driving force behind Translate 5, Mark Mittag. So Ozan and Mark, if you want to amend my short introduction with a few more words, you're welcome.
Yeah, sure. I'm Ozan. I work for MetaQI for a year. Now I started last year in August and implemented myself in the marketing department, and that's where I want to stay in this company because I like it very much.
Okay, so I continue, Ozan? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Mark. I'm working in the IT of the language industry since 2002 now. In 2009, I founded MetaQI, and since 2011, a major focus of the company is developing Translate 5 as a review and post-editing tool at first, and since some time also as a translation tool now. It's a translation management system, a community-driven open source translation memory system, so that's special in the industry. Yeah, privately, I'm married and father of 3 children. I'm doing every morning my yoga and meditation practice since about 24 years now, which is also quite a while. Yeah, and since a few weeks now, we have a new family member called Finn, which is a nearly 5 months old Samoyed dog, which is messing up the family right now. So quite a lot of fun and action there.
All right. Yeah. Now that you've got to know us personally, I'm going to give you a rough outline of what you can expect of this webinar. We are actually going to start with the meat and bones of Translate 5 Visual. We're going to jump straight into the editor of a pre-imported document, and I'm going to show you the functions of the Translate 5 Visual editor and some of the customization options that you can make during editing. And we'll also take on a bit the mantle of a reviewer in this mock document that we've set up just to show showcase the functionality a bit more. After that, we will get into what it takes to import such a document or such a project. Again, what kind of customization options you have, what kind of settings can be made, and also what kind of file types are compatible with Translate 5 Visual. To close the webinar, at least if it's not questions or anything, I would like to show you a bit, or I'll give you a peek into the future of Translate 5. We will showcase a feature that is currently in late development that is actually about to be implemented rather soon. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And after that, we have ample time for more in-depth questions. If you have them, you can also ask questions anytime during the webinar. As we said in the beginning, this is a very dynamic group, very personal. If you feel up to it, if you feel free, then just raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask a question at any time. Just feel free to interrupt me. I'm used to it. Everything's good. Yeah, so to get started, I'd like to bring you up to speed before I jump into anything, just in case you don't know what Translate 5 is. Translate 5 is an open source translation review and post-editing system that helps you review and manage your translation tasks effortlessly. A local installation is not required. All you need is an internet connection, and you can get started in the browser of a device of your choosing. Besides managing translation tasks, you also have access to Instant Translate, which is a machine translation service similar to Google Translate, but with added functionality and added individuality. What we mean is that in Instant Translate, you can include your own industry and business-specific language resources, such as terminology, translation memories, and machine translations for fast and individual translations of short texts. In addition to that, you'll also have access to the term portal. This terminology platform supplies you with a collection of technical and foreign terms across a variety of languages. That's just Translate 5 in a very small nutshell. If you want to know more about our product, feel free to visit our homepage or our YouTube presence, where we have lots of introductory videos. All right. Now I guess we're all up to speed on Translate 5, which is why I'm going to start sharing my screen, and we're going to jump straight into the software. Can everyone see my screen? Is it working? Very good. All right. What you see here is basically the landing or starting page of our software of Translate 5. You can see the projects that have already been imported, together with the tasks that are created for a project. We currently have for this project that that's currently active. We have only one task because we only basically have one translation process, which is from German to English. If you would have imported this document with more language tasks than we would have, like let's say French or Spanish, we would have three tasks in here. But we will get to that once we import our own document. For now, we're just going to jump straight into our webinar EN. And as you can see, the visual files are loaded perfectly. This is the Translate 5 visual editor. On the top half of your screen, the left side, you can see our source document in its original layout with our visual component active. This is the German source document that has been translated into English by a machine translation. We've set that while importing. It has already been pre-translated. And you can see here on the right-hand side, this is our visual view of our target document in our target language, English. The layout has been unchanged. It's the same layout as on the left side, and every text segment has been translated by a machine translation. Now, as you can see, if I choose, or if I click on one of the text segments in here, it directly corresponds with the text segments down here in the editor, which provide us with all of the additional tools that we need to manage our translation tasks. You can see that whichever text segment you click on, it's a flawless process. You always land on the current segment down here. So let's go to this text segment and look at it down here in the editor. You have your standard headers that tell you where things are located in the editor. Over here on the left side, you have the source text. On the right side, you have the target text. And if you want to include additional headers into this bar, all you have to do is click on a drop down, and you can, wait a sec, I have to close this first. You can activate columns and add a comment section, for example, that you can also adjust in size, whichever way you want it. It's fully customizable. Also, just to get like the rough things out of the way first, on the left-hand side here, you can open and close it. You have a file tab where you have a drop-down menu of your folders that you have imported. In this case, we imported a zip folder that includes many different documents. If you wanted to change, hey, Mark, do you have something to add?
No.
No, okay. In case you want to change the arrangement of the folders, let's say I want to put the cover back up into the marketing folder or whatever, or I want to change how these two are allocated, you can just change it by drag and drop. And this will also be changed in the export. So this is where you find your files, an overview of your files that you have imported. I guess I can say this now already. In order to get this view, you will need to import your text document, which includes the raw text segments, and you will have to include a visual reference for this. So Translate 5 can construct, Translate 5 Visual can construct this kind of layout. But we will get to the various file types that can be used for this later. Now, if we, let's say we click on this segment again, if we look down on the screen, you can see that we had a suggestion for translating this phrase or this segment in our source text by a machine translation. This was made by DeepL. You can see that in the tooltip. And this is what has been chosen as a translation of the source text. This match rate that you can see here has been generated by ModelFront. ModelFront is doing risk prediction for Translate 5. And you could interpret this number that you see here as a percentage risk. Let's say that if the number is very high, that means that there's a high chance for risk, or that the.
No, sorry, it's the other way around.
It's the other way around. That's what I was thinking about. That's what I was hesitating a bit. Yeah, a small number indicates that it's not a very good match, but this is only an indication. This is not associated with, let's say, the margin of error that might be in the text segment. This is just a visual representation for you to see, and at one glance, okay, which text segments do I need to review immediately if they have a very low score. But as you can see, some of these translations are fine. It's just an indicator. It's a reference number that you can use to organize your workflow, or to see at one glance what the state of the document is. This also correlates with the color coding that you see in our visual feature, in our visual layout. You can change the color codings in here. If something is marked in red, that usually means that ModelFront has assigned some kind of risk to it. This is something that you can change in the settings when you import a document, or you can also disable it completely. As you can see, once I have edited such a segment, this color coding disappears, which is because the software thinks that if we have already edited this segment, then we are also fine with the translation, or with the, let's say, the outcome. And of course, if you have something selected, then it is marked in green, as you can see, just for orientation, so you know where you are in the document. Yeah, I can see the white, the ones that have no markup, we have already edited those. This is still marked as a bit risky by ModelFront. So if you go on it, we can see there's another match rate that is assigned to it. It's a 50, so it's a bit but if we are okay with what is included in this translation, then we might as well leave it there and can ignore the match rate. So just for a bit clearer view, I'm going to close this down again. And we are going to jump into a text segment. Let's go into this one. No more tedious back and forth between client and translator. As you can see, the word Kunde, which corresponds to the English term client, is blue underlined, as well as client. This indicates that there is a terminology entry for the word Kunde. As you can see, if I, let's go on client, if I go on client, or if I open the text segment, in our segment metadata, we can see that there's a terminology entry. And we can also see that marked in green, Kunde has been correctly translated into our preferred term, client. There are also some deprecated terms included, or some terms that are not preferred as translations of the word. So if we just, for example, let's just change the word client into something that has been marked as deprecated. Let's say we go with customer. We change that. Let's disable track changes for now. I wanted to do that later. But you see customer has been marked in a bright pink or purple, whatever you want to call it, color. You can not oversee this. This cannot be ignored if a term has been incorrectly translated according to your terminology. It will be marked like this. If we go back into the segment and we change customer back to client, oops, back to client, not with that, yes. You'll see everything is fine again. We just have the blue underlining that indicates that there is a terminology entry and everything has been done fine. Now, if we include or if we translate,
there's a question.
Oh yeah.
Ishwan asks regarding the interface, one question. In the case of XML-based formats, can you see what a tag stands for besides the number?
I'd actually be more comfortable if you answered that, because I think you have more of the know-how behind the issue.
Yeah, so the answer is yes. So you simply show the full tag mode, Lucas?
Yes.
So in the full tag mode, you see for what a tag stands. And the same you also can see in the small tag mode when you hover over the tag or in the short tag mode. So this is a Word document. Here you see just run one, but if that would be an XML document, you would see the tag name of the XML tag here. Or same for HTML or any other tag-based file format.
I mean, if we are already a great question, now that we're already like on the subject, you see we changed this in the view mode tab. This is where I also disabled the display track changes function. I will enable that later, but right here you see we can hide the tags. We can have the short tag view as we have it now, or we can have the full tag view that displays what Mark just explained to us. If we wanted to hide all of the tags, that is possible, but as you can see in the drop-down menu, it tells us that it's now in a read-only mode. This is because if you would edit any text segment now, you wouldn't see a tag, and you could by accident delete it, and that could cause some issues. So if you want to hide tags, you can only work on the project in read-only mode. For now, we're going to enable the short tag view again, and we're going to jump straight back into our segment, and we're going to change client to a translation that is not even included in the terminology. Let's say we translate client with buyer. In that case, the word in our source document, Kunde, is being marked red. This indicates that the term has been translated, but not with a term that is included in the terminology. There is no correlation between the word in the source text and the terminology. All right.
So there's another question regarding the terminology.
Yeah, of course, go ahead.
The question is, would it recognize Kunden, for example, with inflection as well, or only if it's exactly the word that was entered into the glossary?
I mean, my short answer would be that that depends on your terminology database. If it is specified, then of course it would.
No.
Then I don't know how flexible it is.
Sorry, I think I answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's capable of stemming. So if you would, or there's a stemming algorithm behind it. So if you would have Kunde in the database and Kunden in the text, it would recognize it. You can even show that, Lucas, if you change buyer again to customers with an S behind and save that, then you see that it still matches.
Yeah, it still matches, but yeah, of course, it's the deprecated term. It's being marked pink.
Yeah,
right, I hope that answers your question.
It recognizes the terminology in this case.
Yeah, that's true. It still recognizes it. If not, it would have been marked as red.
There's a follow-up question from Istvan. Is that Translate 5 or are you using a third-party terminology module plugged?
Yeah, it's a third-party module plugged. So it's the OpenTM term tagger that is used as a REST service under the hood of Translate 5. But as far as I know, it's only used in Translate 5 so far. It has developed to be used in Translate 5, but it's a separate microservice. Translate 5 has a very microservice-orientated concept where many things then can be exchanged by other services if it's needed, or if you would like to use another service for some kind of feature.
Is that a sufficient answer? Is everything fine?
Yeah, Istvan said
okay,
thanks,
very good.
So I guess
in that case, let's just continue right here. Back to some more quality assurance features, like a basic spell check, for example. If I completely mess up this word right now, and I go back into the segment, Translate 5, it tells me by basically dotting with a red dotted line, if I right click on it, that there's a possible spelling mistake that has been found, and I can just correct it back to its original state by one click. It's been corrected to back. Also, additionally, let's say there's a style error. This sentence starts with without a capitalized letter. It would mark this style or grammar error with a brown dotted line. If we right click on this sentence does not start with an uppercase letter as a suggestion. So of course we're going to change it back to no and save the segment. Now, if we just to show the real-time functionality of our tool, let's take this sentence again, this segment, and I'm just going to completely delete it. And as you can see, it deletes the sentence out of the layout without changing the formatting. I can now just write anything I want, just ignore what I'm typing, and it would be implemented into, or it will be implemented into the layout in real time. If I want to, of course, undo the gibberish that I just typed into here, I just have to click on Reset Segment, and I'm going to save it again. Now, just to display the unchanging or the way that the layout is not really affected by what we do in the text segment, I'm going to select this header inside of the picture, and I can basically include any word I want, and the format stays roughly the same, or at least it's still in an appropriate format. The layout is not completely busted just because I inserted a lot of extra words into this, which is a functionality that many competitors don't yet have, at least not that clean as we have it here. So, and again, just to restore it to its original state. Now that we're in here, I mean, this was a machine translation. You see that we have, as we see here, a mistake in our source text, which Translate 5 found. It's a spelling mistake. It recognized that the phrase should be "what you see is what you get" with a Y and not with an I. That makes no sense. So with one click, we replace it, and we also include the last parenthesis. For the first parenthesis, we also have a style error, and it suggests we use a smart opening quote. So the same should also be done here. So in that case, Translate 5 Visual also managed to help us find an error in our source text, which is of course our problem and not any fault with our software. So let's save this, and everything is adjusted. Everything was implemented in real time. Some additional features that we have, if you wanted to, let's say somebody edited your document or you edited your document, your project yesterday, and you want to remember what you even changed. In the view mode, you can activate the display track changes function. And as you can see, all the changes that I just made up here in this text segment are noted with a tooltip, and you also see the crossed out the strike through of the word that was replaced. So if I hover over this, right now, doesn't show me as a user. Maybe I should go back out again and assign myself as a user, or
you're not assigned to the, no, it should show you as a user.
Yeah, Lucas is assigned to user. I guess it's just a small error.
The tooltip doesn't show it right now, but usually it would display my name here. Maybe Ozan, if you could jump back into the document, because we have enabled simultaneous. Now it updated. Yeah, there, you can see it. We have enabled simultaneous editing on this document or this project. As you can see, like this is myself, and this is my colleague Ozan, who just joined the document. So you can see here, this has been, and now you see his color. He is a bright orange. This indicates that he is currently editing this segment. I don't know what you call this color actually. It's like a kind of a light yellow. Yeah, these are the changes that I made. You can see the date, the exact time when I made these changes. For example, if Ozan would change something into the document, like just go ahead, do anything. Right now, you can see Ozan changed the word process into workflow. So it's no longer, in this webinar, we will introduce you to the different ways Translate 5 Visual can be used in your translation workflow. Before it was process. You can see the tooltip, it was deleted by Ozan Gedik. He could also, or he can include a comment down in this segment so you can see it, or I could just add a comment to this part of the text segment. For that, I would just click up to add a comment right here. And now we see on the right-hand side, we have a comment for the current segment. We could say here, like, this could be your comment. Save it. And this is also marked with the user and when the user made that change. And Ozan complimented, I guess, all of us here for a good job during this webinar so far. Ozan, could you maybe change back, go back to the segment before and change it back? As you can see over here, this tooltip, this little tooltip icon shows us that Ozan is currently working on this segment, which means that we cannot edit this segment. There's no, there's simultaneous editing of a project, which makes sense, but simultaneous editing of a text segment would make absolutely no sense. So it's very good that we cannot edit a segment at the same time. So you'd have to wait until Ozan is done. He changed it back to process, and the track changes function shows us that. Now, an additional quality of life feature that is basically industry standard, but Translate 5 also has it in a very nice variation, is the search tool. Standard search tool, if you look for a word like client, it shows you, whoop, we didn't have it in there. Yeah, right, because we changed it to customers and we didn't change it back. Here it finds our term customers and we see, oh, this is not the right terminology that should be used for Kunde. So we change it right back and we correct it back to client. If we if we search for client again, there it is. All right, and another functionality of the search tool is of course the search and replace. If you, let's say you have lots of documents, or one of your clients has lots of documents that have to be changed because there have been changes to the internal business speech or terminology for certain terms. You could make large-scale replacements with this tool. Let's say we have client and we suddenly decided, okay, no, we don't want it to be client. Our preferred term for this is indeed customer. We could in here replace client with customer, every iteration of the word client with the word customer in the entire document if you wanted to. Like this is you can use a normal kind of search, which is basically just searching for the exact word that you entered. You could search for wildcards, or you could just search for regular expressions, whichever way you want to.
There's a question from Istvan.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
In one document or one project at a time?
In one project at a time. As you can see, I have in my file tree, in this project, we have many documents that have been uploaded. Like, for example, if I went down to this, we have included different documents that have been translated. And the word client would also be searched in all of these documents. If we go down to this picture or this layout, this is basically something that we decided we wanted to include because it very much illustrates the visual aspect of Translate 5 Visual. This could be a magazine cover that has to be translated, and you have a very, very good visual reference of where the text that you are translating currently that has to be adjusted actually is in the layout. So you can better imagine what the final product would look like if you change anything. This works, let's just close this for now. This works in the same way as with the project above or with the document above. So these are 3 different documents, and the search function would work for everything. So if you had, let's say, 50 documents where you would have to replace files or words or terms, you could do this with the search and replace tool for all of the documents at once in one sweep. You just have to add all of the documents into the project. Is that sufficient? Or should I go more in depth?
No, it's fine, I think.
All right, let's go back up to our webinar. I have to close this first. Doesn't jump up. Let's go up to our webinar. All right. Another thing that I wanted to show you, which is a function that we currently call the repetition editor, but you might also know it as the AutoPropagate functionality or AutoPropagate tool. Our repetition editor basically detects repeat phrases or words and it suggests or it asks if you want to translate them all in the same way. So if you translate, let's say, a catchphrase or a marketing term that occurs frequently, and Translate 5 realizes that this exact phrase is repeated multiple times later on in the document or in the project, it will ask you if you want to translate them all in the same way at once, at least if you have this option selected. You can also make it so that it always automatically replaces all of these phrases without even asking you. So let's say we had the sentence like visual review and translation with what you see is what you get like 17 times during this document, and we had this function enabled. It would automatically, once we translated one of those segments, translate all of them in the same way. You can, of course, also disable this feature completely. And if you check this last box down here, it will only replace the repetition automatically if the target is empty. But usually this is the standard the standard setting for our AutoPropagate or repetition editor. You will always be asked if you want to translate similar segments at the same time or in the same way.
There's a question.
Of course.
What is set status? What status? That it's auto-propagated or that it's translated?
Always replace automatically and set status. Mark, if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, that's the processing status. The processing status is set to the same status that the current segment has.
Okay, so that they all have been edited, basically.
Yeah, and also the quality flags and the manual status that you can set is adjusted. So all the segment attributes. If you close that.
Oh wait, I didn't want to do that.
And open this. Yeah.
I just wanted to keep it all as it was originally. Yeah.
Okay. And open the segment and then scroll down in the right column. There's the manual status that you can set. This can be customized, what kind of a status you want to use here.
As you can see, this is a
client
demo.
level or on project level, you can customize the statuses here, and also the segment-wide quality flags. If you scroll a little bit above, if you scroll a little bit up, Lucas. No, not so far. So these statuses here, they are also taken over then.
Yeah, and of course you can insert custom statuses inside of that too.
We have 2 follow-up questions. The first is from Istvan. What are the processing statuses?
I guess that's what we just touched on, right? As you can see here, you can have custom processing statuses.
No, the processing status is on the second column from the left in the editor itself. Processing status.
On the header.
Yeah, and if you go there and show the filter, then you see.
Whoop, filter.
Don't set it. Then you see the different statuses. So these are the auto statuses that are set automatically when you save a segment, depending on the workflow and if something is changed or if simply the segment had been saved.
All right, so I just...
The second question is, I don't know if I should read the first or the second one, because I will read the second one. Oh no, let's start with the first one. Can you choose to change only some of them? Or, of course, you would have to go through them one by one. Sometimes search plus replacing all would cause mistakes otherwise. And it seemed that you answered the question, but apparently there were still some questions left, which will come to the follow-up question. But does that work the same way for search plus replace, or did I miss it while I was typing the question? That was in regards of after you came from the search and replace to the AutoPropagate feature.
Yeah, so simply search for an F, for example, to show that. And then go one by one, click on search again and so on.
Yeah, it would jump through. The red one is the marked one, and the yellow one is the detected letter F. And it will just jump from segment to segment if you want to go like piece by piece.
Of course, you can also do replace all then if you want to, if you're sure that you want to replace that everywhere.
There's still questions regarding this, because then we'll just stay on topic.
I guess not.
No, seems fine. All right. We're going to close this. Close the segment. All right.
So to add to that, the reason why Transit 5 works like that is simply that in Transit 5 itself, inside of Transit 5, no real document exists anymore. So Transit 5 knows where the document borders are between the segments, but Transit 5 does not work on documents. It simply works on a table of segments.
All right. Those actually were the bulk of the Translate 5 visual features that I wanted to show you today. I mean, this is a document that I haven't really showed you, but it's the same principle. No matter which segment I select, I can always edit it in real time, make adjustments however I want to, and it's all track by track changes. All the QA features work. And I just want to show this again because it's a really great example of how Translate 5 works. Like if I go to which is the best shoe for running, and I just insert like gibberish, the layout is mostly kept in check. I mean, it's a change in layout, of course, because we have extra words, we have a longer sentence, but Translate 5 does an excellent job, or Translate 5 Visual, at keeping it all together and coherent.
You could even enter more, Lucas, so that it runs into text that is below the Max Mustermann on.
I can go crazy, of course, yeah.
Yeah, and so it pushes it down. And that's really special. You cannot see that in most of the other tools, because we can do that for any kind of file format. You can do that for InDesign, for Word, for PowerPoint, for an XML with a style sheet, or for whatever. Doesn't matter.
We have a new question from Istvan again. Then I believe you can also join two segments regardless of source formats, right?
Can we?
Right now, that's a feature that is still coming. So it's on the roadmap of the Transit 5 consortium to join segments. But right now you cannot do that. So that's still to come. But when it will be implemented, of course, not between two different documents, because that doesn't really make sense. There you will have to respect what is in one paragraph, like it's in other tools, because otherwise, as you know, you would have to work on the skeleton of the file, and that's would of course be much more complex, because then the user, even the translator, would need to understand how the file structure works of the document below. And that would be far too much for the user, and it would be really quite complex to implement then, to change the structure of a Word file, or to even merge it with an InDesign file, because you can have any kind of different file formats in one project. So that that's really not possible.
Any more questions?
Do you need to have InDesign to translate an InDesign file? Or will that "what you see is what you get" feature allow you to work on such files anyway?
No, it allows to work on that files anyway. So there's no need for InDesign at this stage.
I mean, we can also talk about that when we import our own document or our own project.
Yeah.
Because I guess we're pretty much finished with the presentation of the editor. So in case you have any questions regarding the editor, you can ask them now, or you can remember them and just ask them later as a follow-up question, whichever way you want to. So I guess I'm just going to exit this document right now, or this project.
Yeah, there are no more questions regarding the editor.
All right. So as specified in the outline earlier, we are going to add our own project right now. As you can see, the project tab, simply just go on Add Project, and you get this window. You can assign a task name to your document or to your project. If you don't assign a task name, it will take the name of your import file as a working title. So if I, for example, chose a file that is called webinar.de, the task name would be webinar.de. But for now, we will just call it webinar en1. We will have to set the source language of our document. In that case, the language is German. And let's create some target languages. Let's take the default English, but let's also include French, and let's say Spanish. There we have it. Hello. All right. If you, for an instance that you don't have a translator that can translate directly from, let's say, English to French, but you have someone who can translate English to Spanish and someone that can translate from Spanish to French, you could include a pivot language in that case. Now, to use the visual feature, we are going to need the raw text data, which is just basically the raw import file, which we are going to include here. Let's just browse for, we have this in work files. Our webinar text. This is a Microsoft document right now. And as a visual reference, we can include, or we have to include, a PDF or any file format that can be easily, or that can be converted into a PDF or HTML. This will then be done by Translate 5 automatically. So you can either like have a PDF handy yourself, or you can use any other file format that can be converted into PDF. Just use this. If you want more information about the importable file formats, we have a link here. If we open that, you can see all the supported file formats. You can use basically every file format that is supported by Okapi. And in addition, Translate 5 also supports the following different formats. So you can see here. You could also open that yourself if you want to look at it more in depth. So if we go and look at all the Okapi supported file formats, this is a comprehensive list of every format that is supported by Translate 5 Visual. Now, if we go back, as you see here, you see that this format is only supported inside of zip import packages. Now, what we are going to do right now is we're only going to upload a single document and a single reference. But if you had multiple documents that you want to include into a project, you could simply do that by arranging them in a zip folder and uploading the zip folder. For these zip, for the zip import package formats, you also have a comprehensive list in our Confluence that gives you a detailed example of how you have to arrange the zip folder and stuff. But right now we are just going to focus on these two files that we're going to include here. All right. I mean, you could also, instead of a visual file, you could also include a URL as a visual reference. But we're not going to do that right now. We're going to use the PDF that we have prepared. Now the client is something that you can set. In this case, it's our default customer, but you can assign custom language resources, and you can also perform custom settings for different customers. So you can manage which customer can use which language resources, which translation memory will all be saved in the customer settings. So for now, we're going to take the default customer. You can set an order number if you want to. You can also leave it blank. I'm just going to include 1, 2, 3, 4 right now. At this point, you can also decide if the source text should be editable. This is can be preferential sometimes, but in this case, it would have been practical in our case before, because we could have changed that what you see is what you get error right there in our source text. But for now, we're going to leave that unchecked. This is related to the model front functionality, the risk prediction that we have. You could enable translators or reviewers to edit 100% matches for customization or localization purposes. If you don't check this box, 100% matches will not be editable. All right, so we'll just do this step by step.
I need to interrupt you here real quick. If you change the source text, can you export an updated source file?
Okay, so that's going to be answered by me. Right now, you can only export the changed source text if the import file format is CSV. So that is, as often in open source development, it depends on what clients need. And so if there would be a need to export the source file format for another, the source text for another file format, that would not be very complex to implement. But so far, it's simply not implemented because no one asked for it.
All right. Now here in the next step, you can include your language resources. We're just going to include a couple. Just go like this, and we are going to include our client term collection. This is the terms that we defined in the document earlier in the project, and we're going to include those. Now, in the next step here, you can do some system configurations. There's various options. I don't think we have the time to do an in-depth explanation of all of them in this webinar. But for example, in the workflow settings, right here, you could enable the multi-user task editing mode. We've set that to simultaneous. You can change that to competitive, which means whoever comes first works first, basically. Whoever opens the document first is the one who can edit the document. Or cooperative, 2 people can work on the document or on the project, but just not at the same time. For that, you would have to select the simultaneous workflow, which is what we still run with. All right. I mean, for the visual editor, you can basically do some, I guess that's editor changes. You can look at which kind of file formats it can be worked with, I guess. I mean, this is something that I haven't looked into much detail myself, but you have many customization options in this window alone. So do you have anything to add to that, Mark, by the way, or should I just go on?
I could, but I think that goes into the
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I just wanted to open like some of the drop downs and show what's behind that door. So we go to the next window, which is the upload that's in progress. So you can see here, this is our new document. And as you can see, there's 3 tasks for this now. We have the German-English task, we have the German-French task, and we have the German-Spanish task, which all can get basically their own settings. We'll wait until this has finished uploading, and then I'm going to show you some more settings that you can that you can implement right here. I mean, I guess until it's done, it should be done shortly. Yes. So now for our German English task, I can add a user. Let's say I add myself right now as a reviewer. I am Lukas Stegmann. Status is open. I can set a deadline for myself, for example. I can also make it so I can only edit certain segments. This is extremely useful if you have a simultaneous editing of a document and you don't want people to do crossover tasks basically, or even get in conflict with each other. You can make it so that if you have 3, let's say, translators assigned to this project, each and every one of them gets a third of the segments assigned. So they work on it simultaneously, but they can only access the segments that have been assigned to them. You also have an overview over your language resources. You can enable them here. You can disable them here. You also have the configuration settings that you had before. If you have wanted to change them after the fact, you can still make workflow changes here. Or I mean, in the properties window, you can have the short access to if you want to allow multiple users, or what should happen if you have multiple users. You can also like roll back or enable if the 100% matches can be edited or not. But right now, if we open this task, you see everything has worked perfectly. The visual feature has loaded. The segments correspond with their respective counterpart down here in the editor, and everything has been translated. So, are there any follow-up questions to importing a project? If not, I mean, I can show the whole process again if you include a zip folder, or we can jump straight into the next part of the webinar.
Regarding time, I would say that we go straight ahead to questions.
We go straight ahead. I mean, it's the same process. You just include a zip file. All right.
Yeah, so Ishan writes he has to drop off in 2 to 3 minutes. So I think we should go to questions now.
Go to questions? All right. Then just to sum all of this up, these are the main features that we presented you today. What you see is what you get. Functionality, the changes you make to the text, they affect the visual document in real time, which allows for a very comprehensive view of the entire document while you edit it, and it supports every industry standard file format. Additionally, we support a multi-user workflow, or Translate 5 supports a multi-user workflow. Simultaneous editing is possible. You have complete control over the assigned users via system and user settings, and track changes lets you check the progress of your project. And last but not least, we are a web-based tool, open source, no local installation is necessary, no issues with any operating systems or other complications that can arise while installing software. It's therefore very flexible for integration, and you can access it anytime, anywhere. All you need is an internet connection and a browser. So in that case, thank you for your time. It has taken quite a while. So if you have any follow-up questions, yeah, shoot them now. And you can also feel free to unmute yourself if you're comfortable with that, and just ask them that way. I guess if we're pressed for time, that might be the fastest way.
Thank you very much. This for me has been like a ton of good information, and I see a lot of potential use cases, but I mean, I would definitely like to understand a bit more about the architecture and the pluggability and everything, but not in 1 minute. I believe that's
yeah.
the right time.
I mean, this is something that we can always get together with you and provide you with more in-depth information. If we have piqued or sparked your interest, just feel free to contact us if you want any more specific information regarding that.
It would be great.
Yeah.
So Ishwan, we can have a talk next week or whenever you like. So
absolutely. It's very interesting. I mean, it seems like very comprehensive. It's also visually pleasing. One of the better editors that I've seen, and I can see certain more for the enterprise use cases actually.
Yeah, that's the target audience basically. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you too. Have a nice day.
Very nice meeting you, Ozan and Lucas.
Thank you.
Take care and good luck with the account.
Same to you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. All right. I mean, we only have one participator left, but if I can still
wrote in the comment, have a nice bank holiday and a nice weekend. So I guess
that's it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.